Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Infinite Improvement Podcast with myself, Coach Christo and Coach Andres. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about our coaching philosophy in possession. So what we would want a team to do collectively with the ball. We've both come up with a little phrase of our thoughts on that. But before we talk about that, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about how, even though we might have some ideas about what we would want a team to do with the ball, this is obviously very dependent on the players that we have, the team that we're coaching. Because, I see a lot. One thing that annoys me a lot is when I see a coach who, and I don't know, obviously, Coach Andres might disagree with me here, but when I was playing as a youth player, I would have coaches, and at that point, 4-4-2 was very much the style. And I never had a coach play anything except that. And it was like, I understand it in some ways, like, it's a very basic formation, whatever. But there were definitely moments where I was on a team where we could have played a different formation or just played with a different style because of the athlete, because of the players that we had. So obviously, for me, I'll never go into a team and say, this is what we're playing, this is how we're playing, and that's it. It's always dependent on the players.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think sometimes we get caught up too much in the formations, like the 1-4-3, whatever you want to put on it. And I was reading a coach talking about them, like that's almost as good as a phone number. Like it means nothing, because in the run of play, like if you screenshot every other second, your team is playing a 3-5-2 or 4-3-3, and so it's just a starting point. And so I think when I tried my best to get out of a specific formation to have them play from there. More like I try to give them some principles and a style that I enjoy. And also it depends a lot on like what type of players do you have. Sometimes the players you have may not align with the style, so you're gonna have to tweak it a little bit. But I think the principles, having some personal principles, is very important because it connects you and the player.
Yeah, I think I definitely, like, I've gotten away from even like saying like 4-3-3, like 3-5-2, whatever, because like what I'll do is I'll just set up the formation either on like a board or like with cones on the floor, and I'll show them like, this is how we're playing. This is kind of the general setup. And then I'll move things around. Like when we're attacking, though, obviously you're going to go here, or maybe you'll go here. You're going to go here. Like my fullbacks are going to push up. Defensively, everyone's going to tuck in a little bit, just rather than like saying, because like, a 4-3-3, it could be like a 4-2-3-1. It could be like a 4-1-4-1. You have no idea, just based on that. And obviously as well, it changes in possession, out of possession. In the modern game, I want all of my players to be involved when we have the ball. Obviously some are going to be involved more, some are going to be involved less. There's different responsibilities. But you need to, if you can't play with the ball, then you're useless for at least half the game, right?
Yeah. I think it's actually unhealthy to start with, in my opinion, is to always start with a formation. As long as the player has an idea of the spaces on the field and how roles, what the role means for the player next to him and above, because those are probably the roles that they'll play at some point in the game, whether it's covering, whether it's an overlap, you switching positions. I think I'm more concerned about their ability to problem solve in different places of the field with regards to what does the rules of the game say. Like if you're near the sideline, if the goal's in the middle of the field, what does that say? How do we play with regards to that? So giving them some sort of framework, and then work from there. And then we just happen to have either 4 center backs or 3 center backs, or sometimes it's 2 center backs, So.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So I like that you brought up like space, because that is kind of the central theme of my little, little quote, I guess, about how I like to encourage teams to play with the ball. Very, very simple. Create space, take space. And that's it. Obviously, there's a lot that I kind of feel like is encompassed in that. But I think like creating space is like what you have to do when you have possession, right? For me, it's not enough to just, and obviously, different people will definitely disagree with me on this. But for me, I care much less about keeping the ball. I care much more about creating space. I want players to create space, whether they're on the ball or off the ball. So whether that's with runs off the ball, whether that's with, passes or dribbling or driving forward. And then once we've created the space, I want players to take that space. You can take that space by passing. You can take that space by driving into it. But you take that space. And once you take that space, that's what opens up space somewhere else. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think, I think it's one of the hardest things to teach soccer players, or not teach, but like make them aware of, because if you look at a picture of a game and you ask the player, what do you see? They're going to say, I see a ball, I see players, I see the referee, but nobody really says, I see space.
Open space, yeah.
Yes, and so it's part of a curriculum that I'm running right now, the invisible game. One of the fundamental or the principal ideas is the idea that the team who masters space better can gain a competitive advantage for the 90 minutes. And that to the player, essentially, if you translate it to them, like raw, is forget about the ball. There's something more important to worry about. And how are you going to tell that to a soccer player that there's something that could potentially be more useful and valuable than the actual soccer ball? But as a coach, now that I see the game from the outside, I understand how valuable the mastery of space, creating it and taking it away.
Yeah, 100%. And that, it's you bring up like pictures, like showing a picture of like a still situation in a game, and I think that like just like a quick little tangent, like I love like video analysis and like getting photos so players can look at that stuff, because it's just if you've ever played, it's impossible to know what's going on. I think I remember I looked at like a study or something once, and it was like they were asking coaches after a game, like, what happened in this situation? And they had obviously filmed the game, and they had the coach kind of explain the situation, and the coach was wrong about like 70% of the time. Like they didn't even get 50%, and that's the coach who's standing there watching the game. And I was not good, not so good for us, but like, it's obviously you can get like a general idea from watching a game, but being able to like talk about specific situations when you've just watched players play for 80 minutes or 90 minutes, depending on the level you're coaching at, it's incredibly tough. That's why I'm a huge fan of watching videos and stuff. I think that's like super under something people don't do enough.
Yeah. I think we're so caught up with I got to be on the field, I got to train on the field, I got to be in the gym, and there's all these things that we do that we can see. Again, going back to this visible and invisible game, the visible game is your technique. Can you make the right run? Can you make a crisp pass? And yes, all those are good. But what does it look like when somebody's making a run? No matter how good your pass is, if the defender's following him, that's when you got to make the decision. Is there space for me to put it there, or did he create space to put it somewhere else? And so is that ability that I think when you bring together the invisible game and the visible game, what we call it is infinite vision. And so being able to put those two together, I think takes the soccer player to a higher level, because in the game, statistically, you only have the ball for about 3 minutes. And so everybody coaches the 3 minutes, that what you do with the ball, but who's coaching those 87 minutes without the ball, which become more important. So I guess my question would be, if space is such a pivotal point to your style, how do you convince the players of controlling space, or how do you almost sell them the idea that, like, okay, the ball is important, but how do we control space? For
sure. So obviously, like space is only important in so much as like we can use it to either keep the ball or, move the ball forward into advanced positions, create opportunities to score, whatever it is. So obviously space is very, very important. But it, it'll be like, I won't tell a player, we wouldn't focus so much on the space and kind of be like tricking them a little bit to focus on the space, because that's how we're going to, either keep the ball or, move the ball forward or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, it's, and then also when I think one of the toughest things, to kind of explain to a player is that their movement off the ball, even if they don't receive the ball, might be incredibly important, right? Like we've all made a run, like 50 yards or something, and been like, sprinting as quickly as we can to get into a great position. And then your teammate doesn't pass you. And sometimes, they play the other way and your team scores a goal and you're like, okay, I made the run. And sometimes they just lose the ball. And either way, it can be really, really rough. But those movements are still very, very important. And like you just have to, explain to players that, if you're opening up space, you're doing your job. So one thing, like I talk about this a lot in, when I do like 2v2s, I'll often start with 1v1s and build into 2v2s. And then obviously, it's easier to win, in my opinion, most of the time. If you're like in a tight space, it'll be easier to win a 1v1 than it will be to win a 2v2 as the attacking team. I would say most of the time. Obviously you have that option to pass, but at the same time, the space gets smaller. There's another defender. So what I do is, just because you have the option to pass doesn't necessarily mean you should pass, right? So you have the 2v2, one of the attackers has pulled one defender far away, made a great run. You have your 1v1. I want you to take that 1v1, right? And then if you lose the ball, it is what it is. So I think it's building like those kind of ideas from the small sided stuff. And once you do that, then you get into a bigger game and players are making mistakes and players are doing this and that. But you can always, I had a coach who told this to me once. Sorry, I know I'm going on a bit. I had a coach who told me once that if I'm going to rate your performance out of 10, you should never get less than a 5, because you can always move off the ball. You can always create space for your teammates. You can always, make runs forward. You can always track back to defend, even if you lose the ball every time you get it, even if your touch is horrible. Every once in a while, maybe you have a game where you go below a 5, but if you're fit, if you're healthy, you should always be able to do the off the ball stuff. That is very, very simple. And that's like half the game, maybe even, more than half the game, but
I think it's more than, no, that's true. And I think, it has so much to do with the way that we deliver, the idea of space. I think even like, let's go back to that 2v2 scenario. I think I wish somebody would have, when I did 2v2s as a player, nobody reminded me that this is a portion of the game that we're pulling out and we're just working on this. So if you lose the ball, you probably have another 8 players behind you, which removes the stress or removes the idea that, oh man, I lost the ball again. Oh man, and because of the 2v2, your mind becomes more on that micro, and like I lost the ball and then the other your team, you got scored on the 2v2. And yes, in that drill, they score that goal. But in the bigger picture, when you're doing 2v2s, you're most likely in the final third. And if that 2v2 doesn't work, you're not going to be punished as easily as you are in this drill that you're executing, because you should have 8 players that are going to help you. So it's almost like, how can we create a space in which we remind them, like, go for that 2v2, because even if you lost and the other team scored, we're going to have other practices in which we're going to worry about what is the structure that we need, so that the players under you, if you're going to go and dribble 10 times and you lose 8, but you score 2, that is the point of the game. That's what we're trying to create for Neymar, for Ronaldinho, for, we're not expecting them to win 10 out of 10, right? So I think that helps. And I think the other thing that's really difficult is, I think it's an industry, and it revolves around statistics, and nobody is keeping track of who's getting the best spatial master soccer player in the world. You're getting the Balón de Oro, which has to do with assists, with goals, with titles.
With defenders can't even get that award anymore.
Yeah, so even defenders who do have stats can't have a harder time. So imagine now we've created this entire world of the visible game, which is with statistics and the things that are pleasant to the eye. And so it undervalues when a kid wants to go out and play. They want the ball, they want the assist, or before the play, before the assist. They want nothing to do with nothing that won't be maybe on the newspaper, or here in college it would be like on the website the next day. So it makes it even harder for us to convince them of it makes it harder to convince them that it's a collective game, and that the team that has a collective set of principles, whether it's space, time, even whether it's possession, defending, whatever you want to base your game on, if the collective is together in that, I think you have a higher chance of controlling the outcome of the game. Because if there was only one way, then Atletico Madrid wouldn't win La Liga against Barcelona and Real Madrid. Leicester City doesn't win that. And so I think we undervalue the ability to be able to point out the invisible. And yes, Messi and Ronaldo and Mbappe and all of these players are exceptional, but I don't know that there's enough people talking about Kante. There's not enough people talking about Jorginho. There's not enough people talking about Rodri, which I think without these players, and it's clear, like without Kante, Chelsea has lost a lot of points. Without a good six or a good winger that stays on the line and doesn't touch the ball, the game doesn't actually happen. But again, it's the industry. How do you sell jerseys? How do you sell when you watch a highlight on YouTube, you're watching the goals, you're watching the assists, you're not watching.
Yeah, no one's watching the off the ball movement of the player.
No one's watching that. Which is significantly, without the off the ball movement, it doesn't happen. Like Messi, the reason why it's so hard for Messi to perform in Argentina versus Barcelona is the
players around him. Yeah,
Barcelona is a master at spatial awareness. Argentina is more street, more where the ball is, that's where we are, and I'll beat you with my talent. So it becomes significantly more difficult to stand out. So yeah, I think it's cultivated in a very unhealthy or individualistic manner from the highest of levels down, so that it makes it difficult for us who are working with young players who are only looking at the highlights or the best goals or even the best tackles, because even the best tackles can also be misleading. Like maybe you didn't have to go and tackle him because maybe you left something open, And at the end of the game, it's a game of opinions. Everybody has their own style. Everybody has their own values. But yeah, so I think space is definitely one of the most important principles or undervalued principles in the game.
Yeah, I think like a good example would be Werner, right? Last year at Chelsea, I thought, like, personally watching him play in games, I thought he played very well the whole season. And every day I'd get on Instagram as another post, oh, what a flop, what a horrible player or something. And like, and I literally just posted a video the other day about how I think that like people always ask me like the most important thing for like specific positions. And when someone asks me the most important thing for strikers, literally every other video I've seen on like the most important thing for strikers, it's like have a killer instinct in the box, like score a lot of goals. And so I say exactly the opposite. I say the most important thing if you're an attacking player is to not judge your performance based on goals, because that is a very, very unhealthy way to go. Yeah. And it leads to like, one, it destroys your confidence if you go a couple games without. When you were a player, what position did you play?
I play a lot in the middle and wing back. So,
Okay.
but number 6 as a 6 was
Yeah.
where I enjoyed the most.
Okay. So not super no pressure to score goals, but
No pressure to score goals unless I was playing pickup. Then
yeah.
it's a smaller space, and I'm gonna try to kill you no matter what. Anyway,
Yeah.
continue.
So I remember like, once I had an incredible season when I was playing in England. I scored like um 20 something goals, won, as top scorer, player of the year, won some awards. And the next season, first 20 games of the season, I had 4 goals. And I was like, oh my God, like this is rough. But looking back, I honestly think that I played better in those 20 games than I had played the previous season. Because, and I have like, some videos I can watch and stuff too.
Yeah.
But like, I was giving like tons of assists. I was playing the same position. I just wasn't scoring. The goals weren't coming, but I was still playing incredibly well, creating, opportunities for my teammates and stuff. I had way more assists than I had the previous season. And that's just how it goes sometimes, if the ball doesn't fall for you to take that chance, but you're still creating it for someone else, and the team's still scoring. We were scoring like 4 goals every game. Chances just weren't falling to me. It is what it is sometimes.
I think, the game, like it's a collective game, and it's gotten corrupted to individual moments. And it's because we enjoy those individual moments.
Because we watch the highlights.
We are like as humans, we enjoy being acknowledged. And so how more acknowledged can you be if than scoring the goal or making the assist or the save and tackle? And so we crave that. And so it's difficult to work against that. So I think for me, it's more like, how can I don't care if you scored upper 90, I'm going to be yelling my lungs out at the player that stayed and didn't move and stayed on the sideline to create the space, and let him know that it happened because of you. And then I'll go to the guy who scored upper 90. I'll be like, yo, great shot. But we all know he could do that because he did it. But it's like, how can I reinforce the fact that this wouldn't have happened had this player not made the run and the other one stayed tied to the touchline? And I think rewarding them, and then showing them in clips, and like, this doesn't happen if this, and then recreate or show them the moments in which this player that can score upper 90 couldn't score because there wasn't space, and the space wasn't created because you guys weren't making the runs or because you weren't tied to the sideline. You have to, and now they feel seen, they feel rewarded for what they did. And I think if you can tap into that human aspect, that I want to be rewarded or seen or felt that I did something well, they'll detach a little bit from the goal.
Yeah, I always make an effort to I say well done to someone else, or like sometimes it's multiple people, like in the build up to a goal. Often it's multiple people, but not even necessarily like the person giving the assist, but obviously that is sometimes it. Someone made a run, someone made a pass, someone won the ball back to start the attack. I'll always make an effort to say well done there, because and at the same time, right, like it feels like scoring a goal is a magical feeling, like it just is. But I think like it's important, you need to like kind of share that magic with the rest of the team, right? Because you never score a goal there are very few goals that you score all by yourself. It happens sometimes. Messi scored that one crazy goal. Maradona had that incredible run.
But even then, if there weren't other players on the field,
making the runs,
all 11 players would have gone to Messi, and Messi wouldn't have done that. Maradona would have done that. So it's controlling the space as a team to create space for the players who are more gifted at coming out of situation than the smaller spaces. So it's always a game of space. Finding the right players to put in what spaces, and then the team who does that better at the end of the day most likely wins.
And I mean, I think it's important to like the person who won the ball back, who had who hasn't scored all season, but he won the ball back to start that attack. Like, it's important that he feels like it
wouldn't happen without him.
In that. And like my favorite celebrations are always when it's like the whole team together. Like it annoys me sometimes when like a player will score like a tap in and they'll run to the corner flag and they'll be doing like flips and stuff or like and it's like you could. I do get it because it is a I know that scoring goals is a wonderful feeling, but it's
Yeah.
you score goals as a team.
Yeah.
It's 100%.
That's big, man.
Did you come up with just like a quick little phrase or sentence for your in possession philosophy?
Yeah. So actually, before I gave my ideas on how I like to approach it. So I know you watched one of my teams play, and so like I think coaches normally have this utopian approach to their style of play, but does it actually happen? And so I guess I'm more curious as to like that day that you watched, and I don't know how much you remember, but that day that you watched the game, what do you remember were expressions of my team or our team, and how would you describe that style? And then I can unpack what's in my brain with regards to how I go about possession or attacking.
Yeah. So I think that the I mean it really was a game of two halves, right? But at the same time, I think that you probably had 70% possession in both halves, maybe at least something like that, especially the first half. So definitely controlled the game. I think the movement was really good. The off the ball, players always had options to pass to, and they always had multiple options, which is obviously really, really important because that allows them to make the best decision in each situation. And the ball was moving around very, very quickly. I think and then in the second half, it was more the same. I would say in the maybe the first 2/3 of the field, and then in the last third of the field, players were taking a little bit more risk sometimes, which obviously you talked about a little bit at halftime, and then also it was still 0-0, so at some point you need to start taking some more risks. The one thing that I would have said, obviously and it's not like that team that day was like perfectly embodying your idea of the game, right? But I think that the one thing that I would say is I like to I think we probably have slightly different philosophies. I like to play a little bit more directly. And I got the Stoke City top on, so so that it doesn't necessarily mean knock the ball long and chase it. But I do like to I don't know, take a risk, even if I don't know if it's going to, pay off. I'll, encourage players to, make a forward thinking pass, even if it's maybe 20% or 30% that it's going to go through, but if it does go through, maybe we create something off that. Or, maybe we just secure possession higher up in the field, or even lose possession. But if we can, pressure them and win it back in their third of the field. So yeah, I like to play a little bit more directly at times. And I think, that's basically the only thing I'd say. But, in possession, obviously you controlled the whole game, and the movement off the ball was very good. And the passing was, really, really quick and nice and sharp.
Yeah. And so I think we'll never create a scenario where your team plays exactly how you've imagined it. Obviously you would, if you have the ball, you would like to end the game like City did against Leicester. I mean,
true. Leeds.
Right. And then it also depends on the personnel, like what are your forwards, what are your wingers?
Exactly.
But I think for me, I have to see the game as a whole before I pick how we express this attacking. And so I think for me is if you ask me what is your style, I would say it's possession, and I would call it possession to the power of 3. And what I mean by that is I want to possess the space, I want to possess the time, and I want to possess the ball. And so it's almost like a triangle. If I can possess the space and the time, then the ball will be part of this possession. And so it's a matter of how do I create a structure or place them. It has more to do with positional play than it really does with possession off the ball, and helping them understand where are their options. So every time the six has the ball, he should have at least 5 options.
Yeah.
And if he knows that, then when he has the ball, he's more likely to not give it away. And then how do we get the players to get the ball always facing forward, as opposed to the midfielder coming to get the ball from the center back? And regardless of how good you are, if you go get the ball from the center back, you've eliminated no lines. So how can we use our resources to get our players facing forward, which has to do with where we want to go. And so sticking to space, sticking to time, and sticking to the ball is the field is significantly bigger than us at the highest level, and especially at like that team that was playing that day, 07s. The field's way too big for it. So it's like, how can we find a way to take advantage, make this thing that's bigger than us an actual advantage as opposed to a deficit? So use the crap out of it when we have the ball, and then when we don't have the ball, if we have been together, then we can limit. So we'll limit the same thing, that we'll limit the space, we'll limit the time, and at the end it's to get the ball back. And so it would be like the right pass has less to do with how crisp it is, but was it to a player who had time and space? And then when you work from there, if every decision is based out of that, then I think as you go up the field, those things start to decrease. So it's the same ideas, but you just have to execute those principles a little bit quicker, but it's still there. It's still, how do you create an inch of space, take on the space, and it has to be the player off the ball has to take the space, and the player on the ball has to read where the space goes. And so I think I try my best to bring those three to the table every single training session, and I try to tell them that we will have the ball, but if we focus on the ball, it's not going to happen. You have to focus on time and space. And I think going back to beyond the game, similar to our previous episode 1, it for me is, how can I simplify this so that they get it? And for example, like going to a different space. I don't know. Let's say you're a cook, and you're going to cook Christmas dinner, and you have a whole week, and you have the entire kitchen to yourself. You're very likely to cook a hell of a meal. But what would it be like if you decrease the time and the space? You have 5 people cooking with you in the same kitchen, and it goes from you have a week to you have 2 hours to cook the same meal, right? And so the moment you decrease that, your output is going to be not as good as you can. So if I know that my teammate needs more space and more time, my job is to create that for him. And so now I'm rewarding the team by all these things that I do, so that they can create the perfect meal. And so many times I think we do the opposite. I want to go and create the perfect meal with the ball, as opposed to what would it look like if you just told somebody like, hey, I'm cooking an amazing meal. Can you come and cook in 3 hours, because I need the space to be able to put the rice here and this stuff here. So it goes back to beyond the game. It's a human quality, or it's a human almost condition to, you need time and you need space. You can call a ball what it could be, the ball, it could be the goal, but you need time and space for this too. So if I can convince you that it has to do with your everyday, if you're going to take an exam, if you take an exam with 20 people like next to you, and you have 30 minutes to finish the exam, versus you're taking it by yourself and you can take the entire day, it changes everything. So going into those characteristics of beyond the game, and then what's the word that I'm looking for? Deconstructing it outside of soccer, reconstructing it in soccer, and then it starts to click a little bit more in their mind. So yeah, I think those are pivotal. And I guess the last thing, I guess talking about the City Leeds game. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it. And I think Leeds has one of the best coaches in the world. And
I love him.
Yeah, and so I think that going back to space, time, and the ball, I think Leeds normally does an outstanding time of decreasing the amount of time a player has to make a decision. So they'll go 1v1.
Yeah, they took Chelsea to like 90 minutes or something, before losing, like literally like what, 4 days before or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think they were exceptional at decreasing the time for the opponent, but they go on a 1v1 type basis. So like this guy's gonna get this guy and you'll follow him. I think what City did better was not only were they able to decrease Leeds' time on the ball, but they were able to possess space in the point where like Rodri was making a bunch of runs forward that he didn't used to, simply because they were going to follow him and there was going to be space somewhere else. So I think although Leeds was able to decrease time to the players, City was able to increase space elsewhere in the field, which gave them the ball. They had control of space, they had control of time, they had the ball, which is two similar coaches. Obviously the budgets are different level. But last year I think City didn't do that. I think City almost gave into that one-on-one all over the field, and City had a very hard time with Leeds. So I guess that, just to say, I guess for me is space and time and the ball. If you pick only a couple of those, it's like a table. And if you only pick space or time, if the triangle and the ball is at the top, and you remove either the space or the time, I think it's gonna collapse. So you need those two, which again go back to the invisible game. How do you find time? And how do you see the space when you want to see the ball? So I think that's what I try to do with my players on the ball. And the opposite we'll get into other episodes. What does it look like on the ball? But yeah, and there's this saying that like coaches normally say you got to read the game better. Or even like in life, like when you go into a room, like you got to read the room and be able to read the room. And so I think for me, it's if you're reading the game, somebody else is writing it. And so I want my team to write the game for as long as possible. I love that. As opposed to being the reader, the reactive. The writer is the creative. And if you see somebody reading a book, you don't see the writer. You see the book, you see the reader. But what does it look like to be the writer of the game, So I guess that's what I try to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you talk about like different things. It's not just about possessing the ball. Because like one of the things like any team I've ever coached will tell you this, like the thing I hate more than anything else are passes that don't accomplish anything. So like you should never pass the ball if like the teammate that you're passing to isn't in a better position than you. That doesn't mean they're further forward than you, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're under a lot of pressure and you're probably going to lose the ball if you keep it, like you can pass the ball backwards because they have space and time, right? But like you should never, like I hate it when like and this happens sometimes, and like if you're just like waiting for more movement off the ball, okay. But like when center backs like stand next to each other and just pass the ball back and forth, it's like
oh, you go from fullback to center back to center back, fullback,
back and just back and forth. Yeah. And it's like, at some point, take a little bit of initiative, right? Like be the writer of the game. Like a center back can take their space. If they have space in front of them, drive forward, pull an attacker to you. You don't need to take the 1v1. You're probably not going to take the 1v1 in that situation. But as long as you pull that attacker to you, then how much space does that open up for your, defensive midfielder?
That's a huge point. That's a huge point for players, because especially for players building out of the back, because we're talking about the creation of space and time. But if you have the ball, sometimes you have to, as the center back, you yourself decrease the space and time for yourself. Drive, so that somebody's coming to you. And the moment that they're decreasing your space in your time, there's time being increased and space being increased elsewhere. Now the dilemma is, how do we get that ball there? Because then if your space and time is being decreased, then you start to panic, and that's when you do let me play the goalie. So it's just creating a platform of like, how do I know that the center back's only dribbling to create space somewhere else, as opposed like he's dribbling, is he going to get out of it? No, like to create. And then together, how do we find almost bumpers to get that ball bounced into that space, and somebody knows that we want to that space? But I think center backs just feel that we got to know how to build up, and we got to break lines. And like, if everybody is covered, you got to drive, bro.
Yeah.
You got to drive, and I think that's a huge part of sometimes you have to decrease your time and space to create it somewhere else on the field. But the problem
Yeah.
is if the team as a whole is not in that same mentality, they're going to think he's just dribbling. So let me just
Yeah.
let him do his thing. So everybody has
Yeah.
to know, oh, I know what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's creating space somewhere else. Let's anticipate that. I tell my players, like, the team that lives in the future for longer in these 90 minutes is more likely going to control.
Yeah. 100%. Like obviously, I said like create space, take space. Like you can create space in so many different ways. You can move off the ball, you can dribble, you can pass. And to be honest, most of the time we are passing. But like if the thing that I shout at my teams more than anything else is drive, because I feel like, that like that's one of the biggest things. Like I want to see players taking initiative. I want to see them, like, if you have space in front of you and you don't have a really good option to pass, like at some point you need to take that space, because if you don't take that space, like no one's coming towards you. You're just going to like stand there or something. No, like you have to take that space. And, the create space, take space, that's like infinite, it's create space, take space, create space, take space. Like once you take that space, then that's what's creating the space for other people to move and receive the ball. And then you get rid of it and, you either stay or you make your run forward or, whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, we've talked about a little bit about each of our, philosophies. Just quickly, we've already touched on it a bit, but like, how do we do these? Like, how do we encourage this stuff like in training sessions? So I'll quickly go first, because like obviously there's just so many different things I do. Like the small sided games are huge. I think, like, honestly, if I were to say one thing will make like an athlete better, it's playing small sided games, like 1,000,000%. I'll also say, like, I see a lot of coaches do a lot of attacking overloads. So like 2v1s, 3v2s. Now, I'm not going to say I never do these, but I try to balance them out. So instead of doing like, oh, we're doing attacking overloads today, I'll mix it together. So I'll do like, 1v1s into 2v1s, into 2v2s, into 3v2s, into 3v3s or something, so that you get like attacking overloads while also doing like just even numbers. Because I think that if all of your attacking play, or if a lot of your attacking play is like focused on attacking overloads, it's not very realistic, because like how many times in games do we actually have like actual attacking overloads, like 3v2s and stuff when we're attacking? Like it's almost always even numbers. Even numbers, I think, is like sometimes it can be rare, right? So I think that like it's important to know how to attack when you have more players, but I think it's all like, I think you also need to put in those like 2v2s and 3v3s, because when you do that, then the athletes realize, oh, I need to be a little bit more creative in this situation. I need to like think a little bit more. I need to be a little bit more creative. Maybe I do need to take that 1v1, or, maybe I do need to add in a little bit more disguise, rather than just like in a 2v1, it's simple, like drive at the defender and pass, or go if you have the space to take. So yeah, that's just one thing I'd bring up.
Yeah. I think with regards to, if we're speaking specifically in the attacking side of the game, I keep it as simple as every single time a player has the ball, he needs an option to his right and to his left. And now you can call it an underlap, you can call it an overlap, you can call it whatever it is. But if there isn't an option to his right and to his left, you're decreasing the amount of you're increasing the amount of attention that this player has on the ball. And so just thinking about, if I have a player here and here, their other team has to worry about that. And that's when we create that 1v1 at minimum, so that other players can't come defend me, because I'll just play to the right, or I'll just play to the left. And so any attacking drill that I do is every time that you pass the ball, if you're, let's say you're the number 10, you have the ball, you play your number 11, you got to go. You got to underlap or you got to overlap. But just watching him is not going to help him. If you underlap and they follow you, then that player drives into the middle and dribbles and maybe shoots. If they don't follow you, then it's an underlap, put you into the half space and then go. But there has to be, and then if once that number 11, place it to somebody else, find a way that the player on the ball has a player to his right and to his left. And I think those are practical things. And even just like, even if you're watching soccer, just paying attention, like, okay, how many times does every single player have in the attacking side of the game? How many times does the player have an option to his right and to his left when he or she is facing forward? But yeah, I think I like to just give them those two practical things, so that it increases like constant movement, and I think it touches on the creation of space, regardless, because whether you're gonna get the ball, if you go to his right or to his left, that's not the point. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but you're creating that situation. Maybe I'll fool you. I'll say like, this specific drill, we're gonna play him the ball every single time, and then 2 minutes later, like, we're not gonna give him the ball, but the repetition is going into there. But yeah, so yeah, I think make sure that the player on the ball has an option to his right and to his left going forward.
Yeah. One thing I really like to do, because obviously I like playing very directly where possible. I've done a lot of borrowed from Tuchel, cutting the corners off the field. So playing diamonds. Yeah, I play small sided games with. Honestly, I play for very small sided games, so 3v3s and 4v4s and stuff. I often play with a diamond, which I found super enjoyable. Yeah, I like doing that a lot.
So I guess just a question. I know we don't have a lot of time, but so why do you have a preference for going for being a little bit more direct?
Because I think I think like it'll probably depend on the team that I'm working with. So if a team is very so I've worked with teams before that like just give the ball away every time they get it because they think that the only option is to go forward. Yeah. And obviously, that's not a good thing. But I think that, with some of the teams I've been working with more recently, I think that, they maybe have a tendency to not want to go forward and be comfortable just keeping the ball. And I really want to force them to, drive into the space, take the space, play directly. So I guess it really does depend on the team that I'm working with and what they kind of need. But I think that, obviously if you can play direct, then you should play direct. Making them play direct, so like doing things like forcing them to play direct, like playing with the diamond, I think is harder. It's harder to keep the ball than it is if the field was a square, because like at the back, you have you can just put players either side and pass the ball back and forth and you'll probably keep it. So I think playing with a diamond makes things more difficult because you're forced to play directly. So like, I'd rather have them be forced to play directly and then they can figure it out as they go than have the option of just keeping the ball and being nice and comfortable. So yeah, I mean, it depends on the team that I'm working with.
I don't know that there's to be honest, I don't know that there's a direct or indirect style or possession, not possession. I think once the team learns how to problem solve, at the end of the game, you got to score more goals than the opponent.
Yeah.
So when you find the right answer to go forward, and you find that space, you take it and you go for it. And I just think if you look at City, for example, like last year against PSG, I think in the semifinal, Ederson to Zinchenko, City, the team that has the ball, but I think it has less to do with necessarily like direct or indirect. It's just taking advantage of spaces.
Yeah.
Space was there because they were present. I go there. And that was just the right answer for that given scenario. City being one of the teams that will have the ball for longest. So I think is taking advantage of spaces is Sometimes it will mean keeping the ball. Sometimes it will mean cutting you in the throat with a counterattack.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tried to desensitize my players from when I say possession, it meaning you have the ball for a long time. And when somebody says, "Oh, that's a direct team," I'm like, "No, that's just a team that is very good at controlling spaces and taking advantage of spaces." Because I think Chelsea does a really good job of having the ball and then playing with against the City in the Champions League. They had less of the ball, but they control the spaces better.
I had a teammate once who we were kind of like talking about this stuff, and he was like, there's not like playing aggressively, or like he meant like aggressive, like with possession. So like it was in Greek, so I don't know exactly how to translate it, but like it's like there's not like playing aggressive and playing like passive with the ball. There's playing well and playing poorly, because if you can take the space, if you can, drive forward and create an attacking opportunity, obviously you're supposed to do that. You're not supposed to just keep the ball. Like if you have the opportunity to, move the ball forward, or you have the opportunity to move the ball backwards, like obviously some situations are a little bit different. Maybe it's not a good forward pass, but like if both of your teammates have time and space and you can pass forward or backwards, you're probably going to pass forwards, right? That's probably the better decision.
And I guess, it's there's no equation either. It's very depending on the players that you have. And like, if you're winning by 3, like why do you necessarily need to continue? If defending, actually the highest level of defending is the other team not having the ball. So we're not necessarily possessing for no reason. Like, no, there is a reason. We're possessing to defend, but then if you're down, like, it doesn't
losing,
make sense,
or it's 0-0 or something.
It doesn't make sense to defend to possess, to possess to defend. So I think it has more to do, like what your friend was saying, like playing well or playing poorly. It has more to do with the decisions that we're making with this given amount of time, in this given situation, with these given resources, with this coach, with this team, how I feel the game. And the beautiful part about it is that there's absolutely no wrong answer.
All right, so last question before we go. Apart from rondos, do you spend a lot of time in your sessions doing possession games that aren't directional?
Apart from rondos, do I spend a lot of time doing?
So like literally just like 2 teams just keep the ball?
No. Actually, okay. I've decreased rondos a good amount. I've turned it more into, instead of rondos, then maybe
small-sided games, or
I'll do a 2v2 plus 2, or a 3v3 plus 3, which is the same thing as a rondo. There's two players that don't have the ball.
Okay.
It's 2, but like there's goals.
Okay,
So it's basically a rondo in a rectangle with 2 goals. Because I think the game, you got to follow the rules of the game. The rules of the game say you got to go in one direction. And if you go back, is because I'm bringing you here, because I'm creating space back there, because I'm going to go kill you over there. Rondos, and it's not that I have anything against rondos. If you're doing it just to keep the ball, I think there's so many things that you can fix, like rondos without heel passes, for example. That's something I like to do, because it creates, similar to the diamond idea that you're talking about. Your body shape has to be very, very good, so that every time you get the ball, you're opened up, as opposed to resorting to a little behind your heel. So I'll say we're playing rondos, but you can't do a heel pass. And there's so many players that resort to heel passes in a rondo. But it's what do you want to teach in that session is the bigger picture. And then go from there, adjust the drill. Because with rondos, you can teach breaking lines. With rondo, you can teach defending, press and cover. With rondos, if you put a player inside of the middle of the rondo, you can work on the bumper or on the 6. So I guess it's more of what do you want to teach that in that session, and remember the rules of the game, and pick a style that you want to you envision and you want to see.
Yeah.
You're free to do that too. Like there's no right or wrong. Like, if you want to keep the
Yeah.
ball the whole game, keep it. You know?
I remember like as a player spending so much time in possession games where we weren't going anywhere and just like thinking so often like, this is so pointless. Like, what am I even doing? And like, obviously, I it's not like I just like didn't play or something, but like I always make my possession games like directional. Like I always like either playing to end zones or playing somewhere. Like you have to have like it's not about keeping the ball. It's about keeping the ball to get somewhere. Yeah. Right. Because that's what you do in a game. You're trying to get to the goal, right? You're trying to open up a shooting opportunity or whatever it is.
And I think that's such a, I see so many drills. Possession without direction. And so I guess my point is like, if you are going to do that, make sure you're hitting upon what it is that you're getting out of this that translates to the bigger game. So like in a rondo, a lot of the players might like, I'll play the player next to me. And because it's the quickest pass, but if the player not next, but above, is open, then why don't I just play him? Because now the player that's next to me is going to get the ball facing forward. So now we're working on third man inside of the rondo, and third man will help me problem solve in the bigger picture. But if I don't point that out and how that translates to the bigger picture, then the rondo just becomes monkey in the middle.
Keep the ball. Yeah. And it's like, and that's kind of teaching them the wrong thing, because like in a rondo, say you're like playing to just get 20 passes, like it's a safer option to play right next to you. So why not just play right next to you? But like in a game, if you have that option to play through, you should obviously play through. So like it can even like creep into rondos a little bit. But I just like, that's like why my little quote was like didn't have anything to do with keeping the ball, because like obviously in yours you talked about possession, but it's not just possession of the ball. It's it's not enough.
It becomes an outcome of possession of time and space.
It's not about like having the ball. It's about like what can you do when your team has the ball, right? Like it's I've
gotten to moments where like, does the ball actually matter? But no, it does. And then I got to go think back. Okay, when I went to the street to play with my friends, I was never going thinking, I can't wait to go and defend. I can't go wait. Like, no,
I can't wait until to make that run off the ball that opens up space for that other player to score.
There's a magical moment for the soccer player to hit the ball. And so is the way that I fell in love with the game. And now I know that there's some principles in order for my team and myself to have the ball longer, that are a bit more important than the ball, but with the intention that knowing that what drove me to the street to play soccer was to have the ball. And now that I almost have some sort of so now that I have principles as to how can I have the ball longer and go score on you, then I'm gonna use those principles. But I gotta make sure that they see that the principles are the reasons why we can have the ball. So
and I think like all this stuff, we're not saying it to like it's not like to take the magic out of the game, right? Like all of this stuff off of the ball is to allow players to have that moment. Exactly. Like to have that magical moment of that, first touch when the ball comes to you, to have the ball at your feet or score or something. But it's important to everyone has to do that. And that magical moment, it's not so much an individual moment as it is like a team moment, right?
I showed my players in the curriculum a picture of Neymar. I know we're running short on time. A picture of Neymar doing a rainbow. And so we're talking about playing simple. And so like I was like, put in the chat, is this simple or not simple? And so obviously everybody said it's not simple. But in that same picture, Verratti was behind them. And so it was actually the highest level of playing simple. We just choose to look at Neymar, but Verratti was embodying, I'm going to be, if anything, if he loses the ball, I'm here to win it back and give it to him again so he can go dribble again. Because Neymar's highest level of simplicity is dribbling. And so it's more of creating. Playing simple is more of an attitude rather than an action. Playing simple has more to do. Am I okay with him dribbling, or am I going to get mad because he's dribbling? He's going to lose the ball, right? And so it's just that attitude that I take. I'm going to cover him because when I go dribble, I hope somebody covers me. Now you have a conversation when somebody gets mad at you for dribbling. Yo, I covered you. I helped you play your simple by playing my simple. Can we play like simple together, which may mean creative? So I think the simplest style actually, with the right principles, increases the ability to be as fancy as you want or as creative as you want, you know? But yeah, I think you need structure. I think when you say some people tell you got to think outside the box, well, you need a box first in order to think outside of it, you know? We're building the box so we can think outside the box.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so I think that's where we'll leave this episode of the Infinite Improvement Podcast. Hope you enjoyed. I'll put links to our social media in the description. And yeah, peace.
Sounds good, man. It's always good to converse with you, brother.
All right, awesome.